Yep, we're good to go. All right, joining me at this time is an Indy pro wrestler out of Oklahoma. Her name is Taylor Kay. She's joining me right now. How's it going, Taylor?
It's going really good. How are you?
I'm doing real good. Hope you staying warm. Better yet, hope you staying cool, cause it's a lot
Oh
of.
yeah, it's plenty hot here.
What's the temperature right now?
Oh my goodness. I think it's like 102 with a heat index.
Oh my, that's that Arizona weather y'all got going on right now.
Yeah, it's just hot here.
Yeah. I'm out here in Lexington, Kentucky, and it's 91 right now.
That's not too bad.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's high Kentucky can go. So, uh, but thank you so much for taking this time and joining me for this interview. I truly appreciate it. Um,
Absolutely.
so we'll go ahead and begin with this. What made you decide to become a wrestler? How did it all start off for you?
Well, it started out a little weird actually, because I didn't really know what wrestling was when I was growing up because I was outside all the time because I rode horses. So I just hadn't seen it. But when I was about 16, I started to get really sick, and they took me up to the Mayo Clinic, which is up in Rochester. And after a week, we came home with this diagnosis that I had what's called dysautonomia, which is basically your autonomic nervous system. It's not functioning the way that it should be. So I had this new thing that I had to deal with, and it was really hard on me, and it was rough. I wasn't doing so well, and I was, in bed a lot and just kind of laying around. And that's when I actually discovered wrestling because I was not active. And so I found it, and I just was so inspired by everything, by how inspiring it was in general and how athletic everyone was. And I just sat there and said, these people are doing this, and I'm sitting here, crying about myself, and I can do better than this kind of thing. So it kind of just slapped me in the face a little bit, and that was the day I just decided, I want to do that. And I don't care how hard it is to do, I'm going to do that. So that's pretty much where it started for me.
That's very interesting. That your journey have taken you to where you are. I guess you can say it's a blessing in disguise, if you will.
Yeah, a little bit.
So, considering what you mentioned, has that had any effect of your career physically or mentally since you started, or have you been able to contain it so far?
I like to think that I'm doing pretty good with it. It definitely made me a little bit more hesitant to, say, take bookings far out in advance or take bookings that were a little bit farther away from me, just because sometimes my health is a little bit unpredictable. So I was more hesitant because I didn't want to have to cancel, because I'm the kind of person that if I commit to something, I do not want to have to cancel it. So it made me a little more hesitant, but the more that I wrestle and the more that I kind of do travel and get out there, it reassures me that, okay, I can do this. So there's a little bit.
In the state of Oklahoma, they are known for the sports, obviously, from the Oklahoma Sooners to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and
Right.
obviously Jim Ross, the commentator, and Jack Swagger, who's an Oklahoma native. Now, as far as the indie scene, which you have been a part of, how would you best describe the wrestling out there, from the shows that you go to the wrestlers you go up against? How would you best describe the indie wrestling scene out there in Oklahoma?
Well, it's definitely a different scene from, say, the East Coast. The East Coast is extremely competitive, and they put on some really big shows. In Oklahoma, it's a little bit more laid back, it's more of a family-oriented, this is something we want everybody to be able to go to and have fun and just enjoy wrestling, and it's not taken extremely seriously by the majority of places. There are a few other places. There was just this huge event that IWR, Imperial Wrestling Revolution, just had, and they called it Oklahomania. It was a 2-day event. So they just did a huge event with a lot of names were there. Jim Ross was one of them, but, a lot of people were there. And that's they're a little bit on a different spectrum than I'd say the majority of indie wrestling in Oklahoma. Most of indie wrestling here is more family-oriented and more, we want to put on a good show, but we want to make sure, we're having fun and everyone else is having fun too.
I have been going to indie shows for a couple of years now, and that is the route that I guess more wrestling shows are going for, being family orientated for the kids. And obviously the wrestlers put up a show, they perform and things like that. And then every now and then, especially when the heels come out, they get the bulls obviously, and then fans they respond with profanity, and yet there's kids in attendance hearing such language and things like that. Like, you think that plays a role? You think there's something that needs to be done about the quote-unquote profanity, or do you think, well, these are fans, they have a right to cheer, boo, say what they want, things like that? You think that's something that needs to be changed in order for it to be more family-orientated?
Well, I can tell you that Compound Professional Wrestling is where I debuted. It's where I trained. It's pretty much my home fed, if you want to call it that. And we are extremely family-oriented. And our wrestlers are told no cursing, appropriate behavior. The fans are told the same thing as well. So if fans get out of line and we hear it, or we have anybody tell us and complain about it, then we actually will take the fan aside. And if we need to, we'll give them their money back to, for them to leave, because we want that family-oriented atmosphere.
That's a good approach. I definitely can say that for sure. People got to realize, like, I get it, especially with the heels. Their job is to get you to hate them and get under their skin. And yet, fans especially tend to take it too far in response towards the wrestlers. And the in-ring announcers or the owners or general managers, they keep telling fans before the show starts what you can and what you can't do. And yet people still go do what they're not supposed to do.
Right.
So unfortunately, I guess it comes with the territory. But basically, I guess the only way to send a message is escort them out the building. And maybe, they'll get the hint, but, it's just, wrestling is just, it brings a lot of emotion out of fans.
Right.
It brings a lot of passion, so, and I get that. I'm a fan myself, and I may have a moment with a wrestler, trying to get under my skin. It's just entertainment. That's just what it boils down to. And as long as they get a reaction, well, they're doing their job. The wrestlers.
This is true.
Now, for you, Taylor, like, who do you consider, like, your favorite part of being a wrestler? What is the one thing of wrestling you enjoy the most? Is it the traveling? Is it the fan orientation? Is it going out there competing? What is it that you like the most of being a wrestler?
I like to say it's a little bit of everything, because when you're a wrestler, it's a lifestyle. It really is. Some people it's a little bit of a, weekend warrior, as we call them, but for a lot of us, it's a lifestyle. So we live it. But for me, I definitely like the interaction with the fans, and when you know that you you've done something for that fan, because I was that fan, you know. I was that kid that needed somebody to inspire me. And so when a kid comes up to me and says, you inspire me, you know, you're the best, or whatever kind of, you know, anything that it is, you can see that they really mean it, and that means something to me, and it definitely makes everything, because it's not easy, it makes everything kind of more worthwhile.
Speaking of you being a fan, who are some of the wrestlers that you grew up watching that inspired you to become a wrestler? It could be male, female, it could be indie, it could be pro. Like, who are some of the wrestlers that inspire you to become a wrestler?
Well, when I first started watching, let's see, I mainly was just watching it as an entertainment form because I didn't really understand it yet. So it was just more of a, hey, this is a cool show, I'm just going to kind of watch. And then as I watched it more, AJ Lee was just coming around. And I'm small. I'm 5'2", 5'2 and a half. I'm about her size. So to see this really small girl doing these really cool things was a big deal to me. And she was very funky, and she kind of had that nerdy girl thing, which a lot of people, you know, were talking down at the time. So it wasn't like nowadays nerd is cool. So somehow everyone's cool now. But back, it was just a few years ago, it wasn't. So to see kind of this nerdy girl who was my size, and she had this funk and could do these really cool moves, she was definitely a really big inspiration to me, especially with becoming a wrestler and deciding, you know, what kind of moves I wanted to do and how I kind of wanted to portray myself.
I like the nerdy girls, and AJ definitely fit that mold at the time, and she stayed true to that nerd side, even when her character developed over the years, went on to become the longest winning, I guess I could say that word, Divas champion.
Mhm.
And she evolved, and you know, she still had that nerdiness inside her, and now everybody wants to wear Chuck Taylors
Yep.
and be skipping. She was
Yeah.
skipping as an entrance.
It was great.
So, but it worked. It worked for her, and I mean, sadly for her, she had to carry the division on her back, and you know, maybe that may have played a role in her retirement. I mean, I don't know. Just imagine if she was still wrestling to this day, and obviously she had her injuries. So maybe that could play a role in her retiring or whatever. But just imagine if she was still there.
Yeah, with all the women we have now.
With Charlotte and Becky and Bailey and you know
Sasha
and Oscar, and just man, that division. Whew, of course, they're going through their changes now with the draft, and I wanted to get your take on it. Have you had a chance to watch it by any chance, or have you seen the results as far as who got drafted where? And then, so what's your take on the draft? What's your take on this whole brand extension? And you think it's a good move? You think it's a bad move? Like, what's your take on it?
Well, I didn't watch it live because I actually train at the ring on Tuesday nights, but we were sitting there looking at them, you know, as they were popping up. So I know for the most part who has been drafted where. I remember when I first started watching, the brands were actually split, and so it was SmackDown and Raw separate, and it was cool. I liked it. I think as soon as they did that Raw Super Show, which actually the first one that they did, I actually was the first Raw that I attended, which was kind of cool. And nobody knew that was happening, so that was neat. But I think the only nice thing about the split is that there's just more of a, you know, there's this many people to work with kind of thing. And with the Super Show, there's so many people to work with that you don't get to see as many. Does that make sense?
I can see that. I guess the only way you can see some of these certain people is on Main Event and Superstars on the network. But obviously, we're talking Raw, 3-hour show, and you got so many people and only about 15 I'd say estimate 10, 15 performers gonna be there, either have a
Yep.
match or have a segment. And so I guess the only upside from this whole brand extension is that, people are gonna get their fair opportunities. It just depends
Right.
who's got the buzz, who is getting the support from the fans, obviously, and it just depends. Obviously, for SmackDown, it's mostly the veterans.
Yeah, I
Um,
did notice that
yeah,
was the pattern.
I'm saying you like Ryder, Cena, Orton,
Mhm.
just to name a
I was
few.
I was definitely surprised that they put Cena and Orton together because
Yeah,
with the old brand split, they were always separate. If one of them moved, they switched the other one.
yeah,
It
like
was kind of like they were kind of the carriers. But I guess now that we have so many new guys who are stepping up, they can handle having them on the same one. But I found that really interesting.
yeah, and obviously Raw being the flagship show,
Mhm.
you gotta have those people that can take this show and this company to bigger heights for the next 3 5 years from now. Obviously Seth
Exactly.
obviously Seth Rollins being number one, I got no issue with it whatsoever. Um, Ambrose being at number two, I guess you couldn't have all three former members of the Shield on Raw on the same brand at least. You had to get at least two on one brand, one on the other side.
Yeah, unless
And
they're getting back together.
yeah, so
Unless they're going back together,
unless
they need to split them up a little
yeah,
bit.
so I mean Ambrose obviously he's pretty much the guy on SmackDown pretty much, and Rollins he's the future of Raw, and then
Yep.
you get Owens, you get Zayn, and the tag team division. Oh my goodness, on Raw is
Mhm.
stacked, and then the women's side. The bigger strength goes to Raw, obviously, because you got Charlotte and Banks and
Yep.
Paige. I mean, now obviously for SmackDown, you have Natalia, you have Becky Lynch, you have Naomi, and then you like your lower tier girls like Alexa
Yeah, the
Bliss.
girls getting called up.
Yeah, I mean Finn Balor. I think everyone and their mama knew that it was his time to go to the main roster. Um,
Oh yeah.
but I'm super excited for American Alpha. I think they're gonna do big things. They
They're really good.
they are very fantastic. It's just everything about them is just great. And I saw them. I was fortunate enough to see them at their last NXT live show this past Louisville, which is an hour away from me. Very.
Right.
I saw Nakamura. I saw Bailey. I saw some other people. Bobby Roode was there too. He hasn't made
Oh
his
yeah, I saw that he's been around.
Yeah, he hasn't made his debut on the Full Sail show, which they do on Wednesday. He hasn't made his debut there yet, but he's making his rounds on the live shows right now. So, but it's gonna make things interesting after Battleground on the road to SummerSlam. So, um, I'll be watching this Sunday for sure. Should be a lot of fun. Now for you, Taylor, for people that wants to know more of your work, of your wrestling, keep up with your career and everything,
Right.
why don't you go ahead and promote your social media links where people can go to check out?
Okay. They're actually very simple. My Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube are all under Taylor Kubat, which is Kubat. And I have a Facebook page that is also under that, and then I have a like Facebook page that is under the Taylor K.
Okay, I definitely have your personal page, but I don't have the fan page, so I'll make sure to click a like on that after this show ends. Uh, so what are your goals for your wrestling career for the remainder of this year at least? Do you see yourself pursuit of some championships, traveling outside of Oklahoma? Like, what are your goals you want to set for yourself for the rest of the year?
Well, this year I kind of sat down and said that I really wanted to focus on travel. So I've actually been to Texas already, and Kansas. So I have 2 of those shows under my belt. On July 30th, I go back down to Gilmer, Texas for League of Lions. On the 31st, I'm actually going to be in Crowley, Texas for IHWE. We're going to have a Queen of the Ring Fatal 4-Way with Jessica James and Lainey Luck and Christy James, so that'll be fun. On August 1st through the 5th, I'm actually going to be in Florida, and I'm going to be in the Orlando area, but nothing is set in stone. I'm just going to be in the area, and if something happens, then something happens. But basically that's it. My goal this year is just to travel and get out there and really put my name out there.
Wait a minute, you and Orlando? That leads to some speculation if you ask me, but I'm not gonna make any, hints or anything, but that's interesting.
It's interesting.
So if you can have a dream match, it could be any opponent, it could be anyone, Indy, pros, dead or alive. If you can have that dream match against any person in wrestling, who would it be? Who would your opponent be?
I've been asked this a lot, and my only thing is that I don't really have a dream match with one person. I'm kind of the person that wants to work with everybody. I want to work all these girls that are in the Northeast, like Kimberly and Heidi Lovelace, all those girls. Man, I would love to work with those girls. And anyone on the WWE roster would be amazing to work with. I absolutely love Paige. I think that she's amazing, and that would be awesome. Natalia, I think, would be fabulous to work with. So I really don't have one dream match. I just want to work as many good people as I can.
I definitely, you have your good taste of good talent. I see that. I like me some Kimberly, and I love me some Heidi Lovelace. No pun intended.
Right.
But, and obviously, one thing about women wrestling these days is that, especially on the WWE side of things, is that it's become likable. It's become more watchable. It's become something
Definitely.
that fans can be behind. And that's been something that's been on the decline for many years until the NXT Women's Division blew off.
Mhm.
And now you see them on the main roster. And, you still have Bayley and Asuka on and I guess people was like, why did Bayley and Asuka didn't get drafted or whatever? I guess my 2 cents on that is 2 things. Number one, they are like some of the biggest draws of
Exactly.
NXT. And look, Finn Balor, American Alpha, that's fine. Like, it's their time, obviously. They've done all they can do. Especially Finn Balor. Longest NXT champion, it's his time.
Yeah, he needed to
Yeah,
change.
he needed to move up to the main roster. As for people like Nakamura and Joe and Aries and some of these other guys and Bayley and Oscar, those are the biggest draws. You have to keep
Yep.
them around a little bit longer, especially with NXT TakeOver Brooklyn coming up next month for the SummerSlam weekend. So
You can't get rid of all the good guys.
you can't get, yeah, that's basically it. So you can't get rid of you can't just use your 6 picks for all the big names.
Exactly.
So, it is what it is. Enjoy them on NXT while you can, because their time will come. They may save them for a bigger surprise in the draft. You never know. So we shall see. Taylor, it was such a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you so much for taking the time and being on the air with me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
You are absolutely welcome. Continued success. Everybody be on the lookout for Taylor K. out of Oklahoma. Please support your local indie wrestling companies near you. Taylor is a very talented up-and-comer. Keep an eye on her, especially if you're in the Oklahoma area, and show your support. You have a great evening and have a great weekend, Taylor.
Alrighty, you too. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
That was Taylor K joining me on Triple Threat Wrestling Radio.